Hello, and welcome to Passion Place. This podcast is dedicated to couples in long-term relationships. I'm Mark, a tech geek turned relationship geek.
And I'm Lisa, relationship geek and couples counselor. Whether you've been married for 2 years or 25 years, a lot of challenges can be the same. And until we address them, they don't go away.
We're digging into the common challenges and needs couples face, and we're looking for ways to support couples on their journey. Let's get into it. This is the inaugural episode. And with this, we need to kind of explain what it is we're trying to do here and get a little intro to who we are and what this is all about. In this show, we are going to be talking about some of the common challenges that we who are in long-term relationships, we tend to face, and a lot of the common issues that crop up and cause issues for couples. The overall mission of this is to reduce divorce and failed relationships. In 1950, less than 20% of couples who married ended in divorce, but by about 1970, about 50% of couples who married did.
So, yeah, I mean, not only are people getting divorced a lot more, but people are shying away from marriage in general, probably because we're hearing all these horror stories, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, marriage peaked in 1946, end of World War II. No big surprise there. But there was another peak in the mid 70s, and then it started to decline in 1982. And a lot of people say that has to do with the fact that women really were beginning to integrate in the workforce, really causing some distractions. And we'll get into why that's important. And now, about 2018 is when the last time they took some major stats on this, the marriage rate has dropped 6%.
That's the rate of people choosing to get married, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
So it's 6.5 per 1,000 in the population. It's the lowest period between 1900 and 2018.
Wow. So people are just opting not to get married. So we might see that as either delaying marriage or maybe even just living together and cohabitating and maybe even starting families as that. I don't know. Is that some of the ways we're seeing this?
Well, we're seeing this also in alternative types of relationship. People crave connection, right? But there is a lot of fear in the therapy world. We call it avoidance, right? And there's different ways to avoid having a failed marriage. And that's, like you were mentioning, cohabitation, common law marriage, having multiple partners, serial monogamy. So or even just friends with benefits, right?
Right.
The thing is, who taught us how to be married?
It's a cultural thing, right? Like I guess there's some level of exposure to it through media. I think that's where a lot of it was. For
sure. Although, what was the programming? I mean, we're talking, I was born in the early 80s. So I saw a lot of Disney cartoons that would depict what falling in love meant.
Right.
Growing up in Christian faith, you also see a lot of expectations of what a marriage should be. Sometimes, people have premarital advice that they get from their parents, from their friends, all those people that care about them, maybe from clergy, maybe a book, maybe, right?
Right. Yeah.
But now we have the internet, which is kind of helpful, but really research shows that the type of information people go for aren't necessarily research-based papers and information. So really, we're thrown into the water and expected to swim.
Yeah.
With another person in tandem who has a totally different style of swimming.
And a different expectation of what this relationship should even look like. Yeah.
Right. You're like, I'm such a good swimmer. And they're like, what are you doing? So yeah, no,
you're going
right.
the wrong direction. Yeah. So there's a lot we're going to be trying to touch on in this show. So really what we're talking about is the middle married. That's what you called it, Lisa. And I like that term. So maybe you can help define, what do you think of as middle married?
Yeah, I took that from Jeffrey Larson. So if you're interested, you can look him up. He's a professor of marriage, researcher of marriage, and he breaks down marriage into three different stages. The first being romantic love, what we would call the honeymoon period.
Yeah.
And that first stage, I'm sure you can all imagine being there. You fall in love, you meet this person, everybody has their best foot forward. You're going, how I ever get tired of this face? And it's the Disney, it's the cultural stuff that we grew up with of falling in love, right? And that stage, it varies, but typically it's from dating until the first, technically, the honeymoon period can last up to 5 years, but we're starting to see that even that decline because reality can hit pretty fast.
Right.
So, second stage is what we call disillusionment and distraction. And that, man, that's a tough stage. Just like it says, disillusionment. So, you start to know each other, you start to live with each other.
Well, disillusionment sounds to be like, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, right. And it can be very small. It can be, oh, that's what you look like without makeup. Or, oh, you're losing your hair a little bit. And okay. But it doesn't have to be that superficial. It goes into as you start to have the problems in marriage of where are we going to spend the holidays? How do we vacation together? How do we enjoy our time? Buying a house. You start to go, hold on, you don't think the way that I do. And that means that you're bad, you're an adversary. Or sometimes even like disgust of like, ew, who did I marry? You're not going to return a phone call within 24 hours. How rude. It varies. Right?
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing is you have all these expectations that either from our childhood, it's our experience with our parents or our peers, and you just kind of like assume that this is the way it's going to be. Like how quickly someone gets back to you, right? Like little things like that you don't even think about. And then during the honeymoon stage, I think it's very common for, if I get a text from my honey, it's like, I'm jumping on that right away. Not because I'm trying to, it's just like, that's my natural inclination. I want to connect. And then life comes, I'm in the middle of a big project at work and I'm not responding right away. And I think that's where some of these things start to happen.
Well, you're touching exactly on the second point, and that's distraction. So, I mean, oh, hey, you've been married a few years. Your spouse knows how important that work project is to you and how much it means to you in advancing your career, for example.
Right.
So, in one person's mind, they're like, my spouse gets me. So it's okay if I don't message back right away. Right. But then the other half is thinking, oh, they used to respond like that. How come it's been like 7 hours?
Right.
And that's the distraction. Children, big, moving situations, life changes completely. And
that first baby, boom. That's like you're dropping a big distraction bomb in the middle of a relationship.
Oh, let's just even go with your first pet.
True. Yes.
Yeah. So for sure, all of those things come into play. And it is an extremely busy time. They're very realistic expectations. You need money to live comfortably and have a household, right? Well, so then who comes first, your boss or your wife? Your child is sick and needs your attention. All three are sick and need your attention. Who comes first, you or your husband or your wife?
Yeah. And then I've seen so many times where you have in the relationship, the child can end up receiving a lot of the focus from one of the parents and like it becomes almost like the main focus. And so like that can possibly be an issue for a couple. So let's get to this third distinct group or stage. What is this one?
So this is what we're actually trying to help. As we said, the middle stage of marriage is, it's the life part. It's like we're living life together. You get to the disillusionment adjustment stage. Once you've decided what to do with the challenge of the middle stage, some people are going through their middle stage and they go, you're not the person I thought you were. I'm not into you anymore. You don't understand me. You go into that whole villainization of the other person and it ends up in we're done. The marriage is over.
It's called adjustment with resignation. Okay. Or adjustment with contentment. Okay. So I'm just trying to piece some of these together. So
Thank you.
I think of adjustment with resignation as like, well, I guess this is just my life now. Yeah. It's like, I'm not happy, but this is just what it is.
If the couple doesn't split up, because that's where it happens. And there's milestones to that. And there's reasons why. Typically, you've heard of the 7-year itch, right?
Yep.
Yeah. 7-year itch, hitting 10 years, another milestone, and then 20. And typically it's because the 7-year itch goes right into that sweet spot. Again, depending on what age you got married, but the sweet spot of I'm starting my career, family, home, like you're really establishing yourself as an adult.
Right. And the honeymoon is clearly over at year 7, right? Like year 5, it might even last that long, possibly. Yeah. But year 7, it's over.
Year 7, you're definitely farting in front of each other at least. So for sure. Then you hit 10, and that's when you're like, we're well into our patterns.
Right.
And the distractions become more intense. Anybody with kids knows that it doesn't stop. You might think having a teenager is easier, but it's just different challenges, right?
It is definitely just different challenges. Like, oh, they can take care of their basic grooming and do all these things. I don't have to brush their teeth anymore, but now I have this other set of challenges. Yes.
Right. So, not to mention the internal triggers that parenting can bring and work situations can bring. I mean, you're having to face pieces of yourself that you've never been able to. But again, we'll go into that. But then, like you were saying, if people decide to stay in their marriage, and that happens a lot because of social pressure, religious pressure, children as well, the pressure of keeping a family together and just not wanting to fail in general. Like the implications of divorce are so bad that people don't want to do that. It's not an option to them.
Right.
So instead they just go, well, I guess this is it. I made my bed. Now I got to lie in it.
Right. And so, you're talking about the middle stage, which is the disillusionment and distraction. And what we're trying to do is to have interventions. What corrections and adjustments can we do here at this earlier stage to have a better outcome with the final stage, right?
Yeah, because what we're trying to go for is that you reach that third stage and you have chosen contentment. And it is something that you constantly have to work at. And this middle stage is so vital because, yes, it truly is the most busy, the most intense time. If you look at human development and you look at life satisfaction, you will see, and this is a cross-cultural research, so this is worldwide.
Yeah.
You will see joy in life, children, being a child, teenager, college age, and it just goes up and up and up and up. Right? Little dip around teenage time, probably middle school, but generally up, right? And then you hit the 20s, but especially the 30s, and it starts to dip. And it doesn't come back up until retirement age. Based on everything we talked about, it makes sense why that would be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think during that distraction phase of life, I think that's where couples can begin to perhaps grow apart. Out of necessity, or just I get focused on my career, she's focused on her career, or we're just so focused on the kids, we're not really taking time for the us connection, right? Yeah. I think that happens a lot. And then if that continues long enough, then you end up with some of those, I just don't know this person anymore. I've fallen out of love, right?
Yeah.
We've grown apart. Like that's and that's really what we want to avoid, if at all possible. I truly believe there are interventions and things that we can do in this middle stage to have a better outcome, right? So that I can choose for me and my relationship what I want. And if we actively work together on it, like we're both bought in on this, hey, we have a really good chance then.
Oh, absolutely. In my early career, a marriage family therapist shared with me this beautiful home of relationships, and it was called Winter. And it just described that, when we get into a relationship, we expect all 4 seasons, right? But when winter actually hits, it is cold and it is isolating. And sometimes you underestimate how cold you will be, right?
Mm.
Some people aren't prepared for it. And then you go, wow, I am freezing. This relationship must be toxic, or this
Mm.
person must not be the one or my true other half, and go south for the winter.
Oh, I've got to find
And
warmer climes. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, because it's winter because of my partner.
Right.
Let me get out of here. Let me go south, right? And the problem with that is it's winter for both of you. It's not because of the other person.
Mhm.
It's around you. And if you're able to look at each other and go, I want to keep you warm. Let's keep each other warm.
Mm.
You survive the winter. And that's what this middle stage is about, learning how to keep each other warm. And again, nobody taught us that.
Right.
So that's why what we're trying to share is the things that we've learned along the way.
Very cool. I love that. I love that idea. Like we can make a choice, and in spite of the circumstances, we can actually make a choice to come together and to connect.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of the warmth in the winter. Yes. All right. So we've identified that we want to spend and focus time and our efforts here on this show about the middle married. And one of those words that was used in that description is disillusionment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really scary word. So maybe you can kind of walk us through, what does this feel like? How do we recognize that this is what we're feeling?
Disillusionment, right, is, hey, I thought this was this way and it's not.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's expectations that we have. And if we don't take a look at that, then we're kind of sitting in a space of disappointment.
Right.
I mean, imagine if it's your birthday and you love chocolate cake, and everyone around you knows you love chocolate cake. And when you open your eyes for a birthday surprise, there is a big old fat strawberry shortcake, which you're kind of allergic to. And that's so sad. It's disappointing.
Yeah.
The thing is, what do you do when you wake up day after day after day going, this is not what I thought it would be?
Mhm.
I thought it'd be easier. I thought it would be, and fill in the blanks, right?
Yeah.
And the way you can start to tell, I mean, if you're not having these thoughts, a lot of people, as we mentioned, quality of life and enjoyment in life dips, right? At
Mhm.
age 30 to, again, retirement. And that's because there's all these responsibilities and things that we have. Stress removes our ability to be able to enjoy life. So that's one thing to consider. But when you're in this stage of disillusionment in your marriage and there's disappointment, you feel that loss of excitement. You feel the questioning of your surroundings. Sounds like the beginning of a midlife crisis. Um, Reasons for the loss of that joy, aside from stress, low intimacy. And again, there's various reasons for that. And we're talking physical intimacy here. Our bodies change,
Mhm.
our time and capabilities change. Kids, kind of hard to be a little intimate when there's kids running around, especially if there's not a lock on the door.
Even if there is a lock, and they will come banging on the door.
Yeah,
And that right there will send your partner's mind like boom somewhere else.
right. And it's not like you can play loud music. It's just it's a lot.
Yep.
You're totally right. And then you start to go, why am I so fatigued?
Mhm.
I have lost my oomph, right? And that's a very common thing for people to feel in their lives, in that stage of life in general. But think about this. You start focusing on your partner's imperfections, which is what we call rumination. You start to focus and think about, I could have had this, or I could have done this, or why is this way, or why am I in this kind of relationship? Rumination,
Mm.
which is actually a symptom of depression.
Ah.
Feeling annoyed, increased irritability. When you start to wonder, mind starts to spin. Again, you're talking about that lack of motivation, feeling like life is dull. You're not going out on date nights anymore. You're not exploring anymore. and you just keep looking at the same person, all of these cognitions, these thoughts are turning into feelings again of melancholy, erosion, fatigue. And if you look up the DSM, which categorizes mental health disorders, you'll see those same symptoms are the marks of depression and anxiety.
Interesting.
So we're talking mental health here. When you're, discussing having a healthy marriage, a lot of things are on the line: physical health, mental health, satisfaction, all of that comes into play.
Right.
I as a middle married, we're hoping to be able to bring that back, that passion,
Hmm.
that excitement, that desire for connection. And maybe you have felt it before. We'd like to remind you what passion feels like and perhaps get back to that place again with your partner.
Yeah, because you're right though. When you're talking about depression, just that feeling of, I'm just not feeling joy. I'm not feeling satisfaction.
Mhm.
Then it becomes very easy to identify and just find all the flaws that your partner has, all the little
Mhm.
annoying habits, all those little things. They just start to jump out at you and glare in your face.
Yeah.
And that's because you're already in a state where you're mentally a little down, all right, and just a little negative. And then it's very easy and natural to find more negative things. So that's, I think, a trap that we can fall into. But I think
Yeah.
it's a choice, if we think about it, that we can choose a different outcome, a different behavior.
Yeah. Mark, I think you bring up a really good point that, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is
Right.
it the depression and anxiety from other things, or maybe even just, you're biologically predisposed to having depression or anxiety symptoms? But those symptoms can cause you to look at your partner and your marriage
Hmm.
with a little bit more of a critical eye,
Yeah.
or just that dissatisfaction in your marriage alone, the feeling of being stuck, the feeling of loss, right? The
Right.
feeling of disillusionment can cause those anxiety and depression symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of the ideas and the complexity that we're dealing with in this stage of life, right? And that is exactly the people we are wanting to reach out and help. So that's what we're going to be covering in this show. So we hope you'll join us in this journey as we just explore these things and try to learn and grow in our own way as well. And let's just introduce ourselves. Like, who are we? Like, why are we doing this show? I'll start off. My name is Mark. Professionally, I work in software development and tech, and I've been podcasting for over 6 years. And in tech, this is just kind of the way it is. You better enjoy learning new things because tech changes so fast that you have to continually be learning. So I've always had this mentality of wanting to learn and grow and a curiosity. And that's what's driven me to be interested in this space because I've found myself in the most important relationship in my life. I wanted to learn, how can I be better at this? How can I be a better communicator? How can I
Mm.
not be frustrated? You have these challenges with kids, and with now we have all these other external demands, and communication, it becomes really important. And just managing schedules can be challenging. So just like, how can I do a better job at this?
Yeah.
And so that drove me into starting to research and just learn what makes good communication habits. It also just drove off in this whole personal development direction. Like, there's the 7 habits of highly effective people, and there's
Mhm.
many different things, many different paths that I've gone down, just personal development. And with that, you start to realize, hey, my personal relationship with my spouse is super important. You realize, if I want this relationship to be successful, I have to spend time on it. I have to make it a priority. I have to put effort into it.
Yeah.
And so I've been married now over 25 years. And throughout all that time, I've taken an interest, to trying to get better at being a married man, I guess.
Let's clap and cheer to that, honestly. 25 years in this culture, it's tough.
Yeah. So along my development journey, I've read numerous books. I've done general personal development. I've taken relationship courses, and in general, just trying to figure out how to apply these principles to my life. And then as a software developer, I have been wanting to say, hey, wait, I've been learning all this interesting stuff. And I want these tools for myself, right? So I'm trying to put them into a system, a service that I can use and I can share with other people that can be of support to them and their relationships. So that is what I'm also all about.
And actually, that kind of goes into how we met.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share a little bit more about me in a second, but we met through our spouses.
Yep.
And having been, I got to work with your wife.
And I worked a little bit with your husband too. And we had some overlap of our social network that put us in contact with each other.
Exactly. And as we began talking, we're going, oh wow, we both, for various reasons, care about relationships, care about marriage, really.
Mm-hmm.
And you had actually been on this journey for quite some time.
I found it funny because sometimes when we would be in the same place and we were talking, I would just like kind of geek out about relationship stuff and just like, I just want to pick her brain. Like, she's a counselor. She has a lot of formal training around this stuff and knows a lot more. I just wanted to always pick your brain. So that was really fun. So I was like, woohoo, opportunity to have a podcast with you and be able to pick your brain on an ongoing basis. Sounds really fun.
Yeah, we've nerded out on that kind of thing. And that's what really impressed me about your journey is not only have you been interested in, just learning more about it, but you pursued that. You know what it's like to be in a place where you're going, I need answers. And because of your background, you've combed resources. So I imagine that, and a lot of them were connected to things that I got to learn in school and just along my journey professionally. And I'm going, wow, you have been doing this for years. We could have just, shared, you could have had this information a lot more quickly and been able to practice, a lot faster. So it was kind of what got us thinking about, well, how about helping others with this?
Yeah. So you mentioned that I've been on this journey for years. And one of the forms of that is I started creating a software service. And really it was just mainly for me and my wife. But then I was like, I really think this could be helpful for other people. And so I've been trying to take lessons I've been learning from you and seeing how can I bring those into this service that it can be of greater value, that it can be using what's proven techniques and best practices and things like that to say, in counseling, we would have a couple do this and say, that's really cool. Can we bring that into this service too? So yeah, I've actually been building the Passion Play service for a long time. And it's still very early days. It's not like ready to sign up for right now, but it's been something that's been near and dear to my heart for a long time.
And what's really cool is that our intersection at that point in time, I've been practicing as a therapist, but honing in on couples and relationships. So professionally, my interest has been how to help couples, how to help families, and giving hope. And the interesting thing about this middle stage is time.
Right.
Is the ability to connect. So as you started to share what you had been working on, I'm going, oh my goodness, what an interesting way to be able to have people practice what they're learning outside of therapy.
Right.
Because we go over a lot of tools and role plays and things like that. And it can be difficult to have support during those times. But, as you know, practice makes perfect. So if you're able to have a tool that can help you along the way, that can answer some of these questions, that can hone in on, some of the things that we would be doing in therapy, or maybe even not needing therapy, but being able to still work on your marriage in a way that's time effective and poignant and specific to your needs. I'm all about that because I help people one-on-one, essentially, or couple by couple, but reaching a larger audience is just, it's intriguing and it's something that I desire. The more people we can help, the better, right? That's how we built our connection.
Yeah. So we teased a bit about what this service is. It is actually passion.place is the website. You can go check it out right now. Can't sign up just yet. We're just giving early stage access to a limited set of testers. We want to make sure that everything's a smooth experience. But the idea is, how can we apply some of these best practices and tools for couples to make it easy, accessible, affordable, and fit the busy schedule of our lives? And honestly, there's so many awesome features that we have planned. You've given me incredible number of ideas, and it's like, wow, I just can't wait to get into that. But first, we need to get the foundation of the service ready and published before we can start building all the extra awesome into it. That is another major benefit of this show for you, dear listeners. You get to come along the journey. And as I'm discovering these things and learning these things and saying, how can we apply this and how can we make this actionable for a couple? You get to listen in and join us with that. So Lisa, yeah, you need to tell us a little bit more about your professional background and your experience in this area.
Yeah. I'm a therapist by trade, and I like to say a wife in practice. um, I specialize in relationships, marriage, right? Of course, but specifically those relationships that are most important to us, the ones that impact us the most. So I work out of a private practice in Utah County, and I'm licensed to work with anyone in the state of Utah virtually. And I've been able to work with several clients along the way. And it's interesting to see the more you work with different couples, the patterns that you see along the way. It makes the theories that I learned come alive, essentially. But every couple's also nuanced, right? And I think it's those differences that make it exciting and just bring me a lot of satisfaction and joy in getting to witness how people use their differences and their unique skills to be able to find ways to connect.
Right.
And watching couples get to that place of creativity and passion it's exactly why I wanted to get into this. So I actually ended up switching careers. I haven't always been a therapist. I actually was in the public health world, helping people to, have a better lifestyle, exercise more, eat better, all that good stuff. And what I found along the way was people didn't really want to learn how to eat better necessarily. They knew what to eat. It's just what was behind why they were choosing to eat what they were eating. What were their eating behaviors about? And as we went into that, right, it was, I'm stressed. I am disappointed. I'm lonely. All that stuff. And that actually is what got me to switch to therapy, because I felt that helping people find well-being was more than just knowledge of health. It was, we need to go into the mind, soul, heart, all of that.
Yeah. So it totally resonates, right? Like where you're talking about lots of times an eating habit can be part of a coping mechanism, right? And it's like, okay, they actually have something they're trying to cope with. If I can help fix that, then it solves this other part of their life, this other challenge.
Exactly. So that was only the beginning. Come to find that as I'm doing therapy and I'm getting to work with different people, I didn't start seeing couples. I actually started seeing individuals. And every person, I don't want to make a generalization, but I'm hard pressed to find an exception. Every individual ultimately had pain that came with or from another person or a lack of people. It was all about connection and relation.
Yeah.
That's what hit me even more is, okay, let's go even deeper than that. What is our ability to connect? It's one thing to say, I have a partner, I am married, but to be able to enjoy it, to be in a place that you have a healthy connection. That's where I just love. So that for me, that made the switch to, I want to support relationships. I want to support people in learning how to connect. So I have just continued learning, growing, being able to witness people's change, what gets in the way, what can accelerate those things. So it's not just about tools and theories, right? And you know this. You know this. You're a scholar of sorts, right? You gather the information, but just because you know something doesn't mean that it just happens and you just start practicing it. You've got to figure out, okay, this is a great tool or a great way to communicate, but how do we actually do it? That is, again, I think that's a really big key to wisdom. It's getting that knowledge and then knowing what to do with it. And in this case, in terms of your most important relationship.
Yes. Awesome. Well, now you've had a chance to meet Mark and Lisa and the journey that we've taken upon ourselves, which is the Passion Place podcast and the Passion Place service. And really, the mission is to reduce divorce and failed relationships. And we want to do that the best way we can. That's through building connection and helping those people in the middle stage of life, the middle stage of married, which is where lots of those challenges happen and we feel lots of those pressures. And, where we can make little interventions there, we can have better outcomes. So that rounds out our discussion for today. Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time on Passion Place.